On this, the 13th of the Spiritual Aloneness videos, I'd like to turn to something that was written a very long time ago for the Carmelites. But before we do that, let's take a moment just to sit here in the presence of God. This is a passage from the Institution of the First Monks by Philippe Ribot. The other aim of this life that can be bestowed upon us only by God's bounty, namely to taste in our hearts and experience in our minds, not only after death, but even during this mortal life, something of the power of the divine presence and the bliss of heavenly glory. These words so inspire me. Now, granted, this is for, discovering what is the aim of being a Carmelite. And even though it says that this only can come to us through God's bounty, I think many of us would say that God wants to give us these things. And what is it that God wants to give us? To taste in our hearts, experience in our minds, something of the power of the divine presence and the bliss of heavenly glory. And I think that is such a beautiful way of capturing what it means to encounter God through our prayer and to some degree through a very contemplative way of living. And why this links to spiritual aloneness, I think, is that in spiritual aloneness we find ourselves being able to aim towards a deeper, more profound relationship with God than perhaps otherwise we'd be able to. Although I certainly don't want to denigrate at all the spiritual glories of someone who's married, but I think for us at least to accept the fact that our aloneness should send us out to seek from God's bounty these graces, to experience in our minds, to taste in our hearts the power of the divine presence. I love that idea that when we're aware of God's presence to us, that presence is power within us, moving us, changing us, delighting us, leading us to be as close to God as possible. And in doing that, we get a feeling of the joy of heavenly glory, so that our spiritual aloneness, instead of being something that robs us of joy, rather it leads us to a joy of realizing that with God we will have this forever. And we get a foretaste of that in this life. And when that becomes part of the aim of our life, there's something really remarkable that our spiritual aloneness has brought us to.